I went to Seoul and Suwon 15
Suwon.
years ago. Suwon,
Suwon.
yes. Um,
It must be Samsung.
no, I was there
No.
just on watching football.
Oh,
I
really?
think
Okay.
I'm
Football means soccer.
I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan, and
Ah.
we have Sonny,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
he's like the David Beckham of
Mhm.
Asia, correct?
We
Right.
hope. Yeah, we thought so.
So we like Tottenham
Thank you very
anyway.
much.
So
Good.
very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Um,
you.
so how do you want to do this?
Uh, we have already. Thank you very much for your answer that every question, and we would like to deepening that knowledge about that. So this interview is very important because that I think we are the first journalist in the Korea ever to focus on that uh, after pandemic, but non-face-to-face work, remote working or hybrid working, digital working is could be changed that working environment. So I think especially you're the only one that uh, discuss have a conversation with about HLD focused on that digital work. So we'd like to get more lesson and insight from you, especially how to enhance or so if there is some problem, how to solve it. About that, we cannot go back to before. So this interview is getting more solution to enhance for Korean business leaders. So
And is the
yeah.
focus is your name Drake?
Yes, right.
Drake. Drake, is the focus more on businesses like manufacturing and industrial that need to be in a factory or production, or is it like knowledge workers in a bank or a technology? Is it office workers and how they need to go back, or is it manual workers like in shipping or production? Because they have to be in the office, like they have to be in their workplace now. Which is the audience, or is it both?
Actually, our audience are both.
Okay.
So yeah, my initial thought is absolutely it is starting with the knowledge worker, but you know during the digital transformation, the manufacturing also should be applied for this one because they are very now very rapidly applying for the robotics to our manufacturing. It means that manual labor also turn out to be like knowledge worker. So starting with knowledge worker, but it's going to apply for that manual worker too. So both.
Okay. And is there any particular industry or all industries?
Uh, uh, let's start with the oil industry first.
Okay. And final question.
Yep.
Do you want me to talk multinational companies that might have operations in Korea, or do you want to know what technology company is doing in US or a bank in London? Like I cannot mention the client names because of the media
Oh yeah,
rules,
yeah.
but do you want to know the global, or do you want to know what Korean companies should be thinking?
I would like to ask you. We want to know about the global as a best practice, but uh, the answer normally try to apply for the Korean company.
Okay, okay. Um, and then any
Let's start the question. Yeah. Yep.
okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
And the major industries in Korea is
Mhm.
like automotive. Give me an example of the type of person that would be listening. Is it in finance? Is it in
Okay.
manufacturing? And then we will start, I promise.
Well, actually, I was normally our global event gets a lot of sponsors, and sponsors company send them employees as a corporate education. It includes Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and SK,
Okay.
POSCO. So it covers everything. Also in the banking side too.
Okay. All right. So shall we start?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you going to ask me
Sam,
questions?
sir.
Oh, but first question is me. You know, non-face-to-face situation. I think there can be a time gap between a task order and its acceptance. Um, doesn't this asynchronous affect productivity? How to minimize the side effect of asynchronous business processing?
Yes. So synchronous business processes really mean if I am developing a code and it needs to be sent to you to review and approve before it gets promoted into a live environment, that's an example of a synchronous process. Before the pandemic, we would think that synchronous processes need to happen in the same workplace and at the same time. What we have learned through technology is even before the pandemic, many companies were executing this synchronous process across the globe. So I may be working with a team in London or in Mumbai or in Seoul, but they have to be there at the same time because we have technology. Now in the pandemic, what has changed is that people want to have the choice of working at different times because they want to take care of their children or they want to go for a walk. So there's been a big discussion about the work that is asynchronous that can be done at different times. So you send me a report, I review it, I send you comments back. It does not have to be at the same time. So companies really need to decide what work needs to be done together at the same time, and then we need to work in this way, and what needs to be done at different times, but maybe like within a 2-day cycle, so that people can have time, so they can rest, they can be with their family, because everybody is struggling with the mental health and the stress of the pandemic and not going on vacations and not going to the restaurants and not going to the football matches in many parts of the world.
Okay, can I ask, in your written interview, you emphasized the personalized approach and benefit offering for employees in an organization for successful adaptation to changes in the work environment. Can you introduce the best practice you know?
Yes. The personalized approach to your employees is so important because you may be struggling with something that is different to me. I may be young, I may not have children, I may be able to come to an office. I am not young and I do have children and I am in the office, but there may be one of your colleagues who lives 2 hours away from the office, is struggling to come to an office, or has to take care of children through remote school. So people have different needs. Through the pandemic, best practices that companies are doing is they're interviewing and surveying their employees to say, how do you want to work? What schedules? Where do you want to work? Can you come back to an office? If you're in manufacturing or if you're in automotive, you have to be in the office, you have to be in the factory, you have to be in the production site. So companies are now thinking through all aspects of how do I manage people's safety? How do I manage people's mental health? How do I manage people's other commitments? And so that's the personalized approach. But it starts with data and it ends with good leadership and empathy and being focused on what your people will need. And many companies, again, this is not a new topic. Many companies, though, in the pandemic have been forced to take this personalized approach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. If work system in which non-face-to-face and face-to-face work coexist, I think the office space is expected to change. How should the offline office space be designed to maximize the effectiveness of this hybrid work?
Yes, there will be many different types of office designs. So some companies will create bigger space so that people can get together, but maybe distanced and maybe in masks. Some companies have decided, like I am in my office today, we have set rules that when you are outside, you have to wear your mask, and only one person can be in an office. I think what is important is different companies are thinking about the office in different ways. Some businesses are saying our office will be a place for us to collaborate and come together maybe once a month as a sales team, once a month to celebrate, to exchange ideas, to think about new products. Some companies, when the weather is appropriate, will have those meetings outside because there is less transmission risk of COVID. Other companies are saying, we want people in the office and we will separate the desks and we will have cubicles. So there is not one size fits all. It comes back to how many people do you want in the office? How often will they be there? Are they going to be 2 to 3 days a week in the office? Or are they going to be more like 5 days? If you have people in a factory or on a trading floor or essential engineers, they have to be 5 days in the office and you have no option but to design it around physical distancing. So it is going to depend on the company. It's going to depend on the type of work that people do. And it's going to depend on the attitude of the company to say how many people should be back. And that comes back to the leadership preference. Some leaders in, say, banking have said, we want our people back. We want to have young people in the office because young people need to exchange ideas and we need to look at body language because this is just a one-dimensional view. We cannot see all of the other aspects. And so learning how to deal with clients and colleagues, some companies are saying we need to be back for those reasons. So I think that there's going to be many different models and companies will need to choose what is right for them, but putting the safety of their people and what is right for their business together.
I have next question. You mentioned that organizations should segment their employees based on their remote work constraint and offer a more flexible work schedule and personalized benefit. In this personalization process, how should individual fairness and balance be maintained? Could you explain your insight?
Yes. Fairness and balance has become such an important topic in the pandemic around the world. Here in the United States, where I live, we have seen the terrible racial inequity, the terrible murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. It has shined a light on systemic racism in the US. Around the world now, people are talking about racial equity in a different way. We also now have a big concern with the number of females who have left the workforce in the US, in Japan, in many, many countries. And so the fairness about giving everybody an opportunity to work when they are working, giving them the right working conditions so that it's safe, And also if they are parents or if they are taking care of elderly dependents, that they have time to focus on that and their job. So companies have a big responsibility to understand what constraints their people have, how their people are feeling, and to redesign the jobs so that more people can execute those jobs that is right for that particular business. So again, it starts with doing what's right for your people, understanding people's constraints, and if it's changing the schedules that people have, or saying, do you want to have a job sharing program? Or do you want to take a sabbatical where you take 6 months off and then you come back to the workplace? There are a range of different possibilities. It is also dependent on the employment law in your country around whether you can provide sabbaticals, or in the US we call furloughs, where you can still get some benefits. But yes, it is very important. It does take the human resource department to work with business leaders around making sure that this is correct, and taking the voice of the employee or the contingent worker into this.
Yeah, thank you. As no face-to-face work spread, the workflow is expected to be different from the previous one. So do you think the workflow is more complex or more simplified? How to maximize productivity in the changing the workflow?
So the workflow, if I'm in a factory making products, if I'm in if I'm assembling different products for an automotive business, that workflow is going to be the same. Maybe some firms have used more robots to automate it. Again, that is good business practice, regardless, to say, where can I use machines or technology to automate work, and where do I put humans in that process? So I think the workflows can still be looked at in the same way. When you are in a pure digital workflow, we engage through screens, we trade email, we use internet messaging. What we lose in that workflow is the human touch. We lose the ability to develop relationships. If we were in the same office right now, we might walk downstairs, have a cup of coffee. I may have a discussion with you about your family. We may talk about football. These things it may be 5 minutes, but these things are important. These things where you can exchange. Yes, we could do that over conferences, but it's not the same. And so the whole understanding body language, understanding the social aspects of work, going out for lunch, having a dinner with a client, these are things that people have been doing in life and in business since the beginning of time. And they are the things that many businesses and many young people who are new to the workplace are missing out on through this type of workflow. So I would say that supplementing with face-to-face so that we can focus on the social human aspects to build more trust, to learn better, to understand what it's like to be alive. It's the same way when we go to school, or if we go to our church, or if we go to watch our football team. We don't want to watch in a screen all of the time. Sometimes you want to go to the stadium. Sometimes you want to go to the Broadway theater. So how we interact in our personal lives, engaging with people in schools and entertainment, we are going to do that in our workplace. It just depends on the company to say whether that's going to be 5 days, 1 day, once a month. But many people are missing that human interaction into the workflow. It is so important for our mindset, so important for us to learn and for us to be creative and think about new ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah. Question number 6.
Is this working, by the way? Do you want me to have shorter answers? Is longer? More examples? Is it okay?
It's okay. It's up to you.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Right.
We are very I'm listening to.
Okay, so it's okay?
Yes, good. Yeah.
Good.
All right, okay.
When measuring and evaluating employees' performance in this time or in the future, do you think that analog-oriented qualitative assessments should be reduced and digital-oriented quantitative assessments should be expanded? What I'm saying appreciate? If
Yeah.
so, what measurement and evaluation method appreciate, do you think?
So the question around how we measure performance
Right.
is a really important one, because we, on one extreme, we have lots of tools to measure. We can measure how many emails someone sends, how many meetings they attend, how many marketing briefs they develop. We can use all kinds of monitoring techniques to understand how many calls they answer, etc. These are helpful, but they need to be supplemented. These quantitative measures of work need to be supplemented with others that talk about quality. So it's not just about, did you have 10 customer meetings, but how much value did you add to your customers? How did you get them to think in a different way about their business? How did you help improve their customer experience? How did you build a relationship of trust with that customer? So from our perspective, quantitative tools, analysis of performance, surveillance, monitoring tools, they have their place. But if you don't add to them with other measures that are, again, based on behaviors and interactions, and you put those things together to say, how do I think about my business's performance? That's the most important thing. So at a big level, a company does not just measure its performance by profit. Many companies are now saying it's about profit, but it's about, are we doing what's right for the environment and our carbon footprint? Are we doing what's right for employment in our community? Are we hiring people? Are we providing people skills and good jobs? Are we being fair to our employees? So we see in the future, given what we see around the concept of stakeholder capitalism and environmental, social, and governance ESG measures that many global businesses have agreed to, that the way measures get defined in a company will be much more balanced, qualitative and quantitative. And the tools that you mentioned have their place, but very dangerous to just rely on a set of output, automatically generated measures without thinking about the human aspects, the climate aspects, the quality and safety aspects.
Thank you. I have a question. You mentioned that the human resource development department, with combining with the strategy, and they are leading or facilitating this kind of change in management. Could you explain more detail? Actually, in Korea, there are human resource development, also human resource management is also separate operating.
Yes.
Under this kind of situation, maybe you sense that the Korean company, HRD or HLM, cannot hold that whole grip to change this kind of thing. So, which function of the company should be involved in to change this kind of thing?
Yes. So it's a very good question around what people need to be involved in a company. I would say before you ask what functions, we say what is the work. The work that companies now need to do is to think about their future business. So a bank needs to say, how do we serve our customers through the digital channels? How do we think about new loans for people to start new businesses if we want to grow that sector? How do we think about loans maybe to female-owned businesses if we want more gender diversity in small business ownership? So thinking through the business and the technology you need in that business and the customers, and then thinking about what does that mean in terms of the types of skills that I need? I need people that understand customers and buying behaviors and marketing, and I need technology people. And I need people that are adaptive because it might change. It may be that we are going to go from being banking to being insurance, or we're going to go partner with technology companies. And so the work around the skill sets of bringing strategy and technology and knowledge of customers and knowledge of people is so critical. So it's not one department in any company. In some companies, the HR department is facilitating that process through something that's called the people or the workforce strategy. In some areas, the lines of businesses, say a wealth management team in a bank or a technology team in a bank, is leading that for their organization and partnering with human resources and partnering with the finance team or the strategy team or the real estate team. So different companies will have different organization models. I understand in Korea, the HR function may be focused less on the strategic work, but I think it's more important to say where can they currently play and who is providing the skills around looking at the business, looking at the strategy, how will that change, thinking about technology and the real estate and the customers and all of the people skills and the incentives and mixing that together. In many big companies, this is a very siloed area.
Right.
And so there's an opportunity to kind of pull it together. And in doing so, you elevate the role of the current HRD or the human capital team.
In line with that question, that how should be conducted that by a team? I mean that it's going to be a task force team or some ad hoc team or just the metrics in incumbent structure?
Yes.
Which one is the most effective?
In the last 10 years, a number of, maybe 20 even, a number of companies have implemented transformation projects, big change projects where they say, I need to be thinking about how do I deliver how do I deliver my services or my products through a different digital channel? Or how do I get into one new geography? If I'm a technology company, how do I start selling technology products kind of outside of my home market? So sometimes when a company needs to transform and grow its business or simplify and manage its cost or grow through mergers and acquisitions, they put a task force together which bring these different skills to say, how does this focus in the future? So that would be a mixed team of strategy and business and technology and human resources. It's important to know that the business as usual needs to function in a similar way. So in a similar way, when you are running your shipping business and understanding what about changes in customer behavior or regulation or supply chain challenges, how does that translate to the amount of people I need to hire? How do I pay them? Do I need different skills? Do I need to introduce different technology? So a business as usual skill around anticipating changes in your business and what that means to people and skills and hiring and pay and performance is important for companies. So the answer is it's both. but it's sometimes companies put together a transformation team because they need to execute this with dedicated focus and speed.
Let's talk about the innovation process. Normally in Korean people, innovation means like put a lot of time to in the same room, put together R&D people or technology. We always guess like that. But in this pandemic, especially this kind of a hybrid and remote work, it's not going to happen like that. So let's think about that. Ambidextrous organization, especially one is that the left, I mean, it's for innovation. From now on, how to handle and how to manage that kind of thing?
Yeah, so innovation, some companies have decided to put innovation in separate teams, even many, many years ago, separate venture capital teams, innovation teams. They work on new ideas and new products and then bring them back to the business. From my experience, either in a pandemic or not, having innovation be in the business at every levels, working with your customers, crowdsourcing, and having that process and that culture and the incentives for innovation is very, very important. Young people, suppliers, people who have different skills coming together, maybe using crowdsourcing platforms to say, how do we ideate? At PwC, we've launched ideas jams where we get together through technology and everybody throws different ideas together. We brainstorm, we use different techniques. We sometimes use virtual reality to say, how do we really look at a business problem and get lots of different ideas, including outside ideas, and say, how do we look at this way of working or this product or this service in a different way? So the creativity, we're forced into this remote work now. Firms have had to be very creative on their business and their balance sheets. And so they are using some of the tools and the idea creation. But back to the earlier questions, it is so challenging when you're in this mode, on these calls, looking at the screen. It is very tiring for people. So that's why many companies are saying, like some of the private equity companies that are making deals are saying, I need people back in the office because to be creative, I need a different environment. I don't want to be in my bedroom. I don't want to be in my kitchen table. I need the environment. I need it to be immersive. I need to have the energy of other people. And so creativity can still happen fully remote. Many people are missing the creativity that you get from being in person, using all of your senses, using not just what you can hear and what you can see, but what you can smell, what you can taste, looking at body language, looking at expressions, getting fresh air. I mean, it's all very important as part of a creative process.
Got it. Thank you. I think can you have a couple of more minutes? Can you have a couple of more minutes? Okay, just one last question for me. I think it should be a long journey from now to change to kind of a remote work, I mean digital work. So do you have any one comment for golden rule for Korean business leaders to prepare for this long journey, especially top management?
Yeah, the long journey to hybrid work or the future of work. I mean, my one big piece of advice is really be clear on what you understand about your business. So if you're in the food manufacturing business, really be clear to say, in the future, what type of food do I want to provide? Is it plant-based food? What is the quality? How am I sourcing that? How might changes in weather patterns or supply or regulation change that? So getting people to think about future business and their products and their customers, we call that scenario planning, getting them to think about that is so important. But if you just think about it from a business and a product and a customer point of view, you're missing all the other learnings of the pandemic, because the pandemic has taught us that our people and our technology are so critical. So thinking about your business in the future, anticipating some changes, and then saying, what is the role of technology in that food supply business? How can I understand weather patterns a bit more with technology? What are the skill sets I need? Do I need people who have a different skill sets in agriculture or understanding biology or food composition or food supply chains? So for me, it's embracing scenario planning, but in its fullest sense, starting with your strategy and ending with your people and making it very connected.
Thank you. Okay, any other question from my journalist?
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
You said, thank you. You said a little bit about ESG.
Yes.
In Korea, the number of companies that emphasize ESG has been increasing recently. What do you think is a particularly important way of working in these companies?
The firms that are focused on ESG are needing to are primarily, sorry, the firms that are focusing on ESG are obviously stating it as an important part of their business. Some are saying that they want to measure how they get to net zero in terms of carbon emissions. Some are saying that they want to have diversity of suppliers, or they want to have diversity of gender. They want many more female executives or in the boardroom. The important piece around any of these sets of measures is you've got to embed it in everything you do in your business. So if you want to be net zero, but are going to have a bunch of executives flying around on private planes and impacting your carbon footprint, or if you're going to work on raw materials that have kind of fossil fuel emissions, or you're going to kind of engage in parts of your supply chain that don't allow you to be carbon neutral, this is a challenge. On the S part of ESG, if you're going to hire from the same schools, if you're going to promote people in the same way, you're not going to get the diversity of gender and socioeconomics and disability, or whatever the important aspects are for you. So for me, it's about making a big statement, making it part of your measures, but embedding it in everything you do and major decisions you make. And so if it's not embedded, it just becomes another thing. Like we talked about total quality management in the 1980s and 90s, and it came out of Asia. Or we talked about shareholder value or stakeholder capitalism. These are big, big words, but we can write nice slogans, we can put some measures, but if we come back and look at it in 10 to 20 years and we say, we said this, but we did not embed it in how we do business and how we manage people, we will lose that opportunity. I would add one more point, that the whole point of environment and climate is a very emotional topic, and businesses, even within companies, some people have a different view on the importance of climate change. And so managing your employees so that they truly, in their heart, agree with what you're focusing on, whether it's around diversity or climate, or how you make those decisions, what companies you invest in, is so, so important, because we have seen in the pandemic that there is a lot of divisiveness and different opinions across topics in companies, in the world, in our politics, in everything, in how we've engaged in the pandemic. Different people feel that lockdown should be restricted. Some people feel it should be more restricted, more restrictive. So bringing your stakeholders along is so critical.
Thank you
Okay.
very much, Yuan.
Thank you very much. We are very happy to have your inspirational, insights. Can you get back to you? I think this is also going to be published in our newspaper, also on online. But we would like to ask you have your presence in absolutely not in physically in this pandemic, but also invite you as a speaker for our global conference in end of April. So let's check that your schedule, and
Sure.
I really are thrilled to introduce you to a Korean audience.
Great. Can I make one more comment?
Yep.
Can I want to give one more.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really important for people who are younger and newer to the workplace to really take this opportunity to understand a few things. That this is an opportunity for young people to learn so much about business,
Right.
because you are in lots of meetings with lots of people. This is a time when every topic is connected. You cannot talk about skills without talking about technology. You cannot talk about the strategy of your company and how you make money in your financials without saying, but then how does that mean we create jobs for people, and where do those jobs get located? So the more that people who have not been in the workplace for longer, or maybe not lived through economic turbulence and recessions, the more that you can engage and be confident that once we will get out of it. But secondly, it's a great opportunity to learn. I remember in the financial crisis and at the dot-com crisis, I learned so much about business and interactions and topics from strategy to technology to financials. And this is a terrible pandemic, but let's take the benefits of the ability to learn. We are all living through a case study. We will all tell our children and our grandchildren about it, but there's a lot as business leaders and as employees and as new employees that we can actually take as a learning experience.
Thank you very much for your time and your insights too. Have a good day.
So what is the next step? When does this get published?
I think end of this month.
Yes.
End of March.
Before that, we're gonna share that our draft.
And it's not in English, no?
Sorry, in Korean.
No, in Korean. But I can like Google Translate, yeah?
You can do it. Also, we'll share that the partner of PwC.
Yes. Right.
He can check that.
Okay. And the video will be on the public or private?
He's going to. Yeah, we think about the YouTube channel. We have YouTube channel too. Yeah.
Okay. And you'll put what, subtitles, or you'll dub it?
Right.
Subtitles or
subtitle
dubbing?
on that. Subtitles.
Okay.
That
Okay,
is more.
good. Subtitles are good.
Yeah, because we don't want to lose that you're attractive voice.
Okay. Well, I hope it was helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Enjoy your weekend. Okay.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
자,